Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel on partnering to drive successful Dynamics migration. My name is Monique Hayward, and I'm the Senior Director and Ecosystem Lead for Business Applications Marketing at Microsoft. And allow me to introduce our panelists, starting with Rachel Profit from Microsoft. Rachel.
Hi, thanks, Monique. My name is Rachel Profit. I am a white female with long red hair that's up today, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a senior fast track program manager in the fast track team based out of the Americas here at Microsoft. I'm going to hand it over to Hanumanth to introduce himself.
Thanks, Rachel. This is Hanumanth here. I'm part of the Sonata partner ecosystem, and I'm basically a competency manager and on the Dynamics track. And from Sonata, we've been doing a lot of work on the whole upgrade and modernization, which we'll talk about today. And let me hand over to Chad.
Thank you very much. I'm Chad Sogi. I'm an executive here at Enavate, and I lead what we call our partner services division at Enavate. A lot of our focus has been on migrations from any of the on-prem solutions to the cloud solutions and helping other partners and end clients figure out their path forward to get to Dynamics 365.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to moderating this wonderful discussion with our partners and with Rachel. Rachel, first question goes to you. Why should Dynamics on-prem customers even consider migrating to the cloud? And what does that journey look like for them?
Great question, Monique. I think there's a lot of reasons why customers might migrate, but I think when we think about the digital transformation in any organization, the cloud and the pace at which Microsoft and other technology providers are innovating it's astounding, really. And I think when we move to the cloud and start to adopt new technologies like Dynamics 365, it provides businesses opportunities to accelerate their digital transformation and help businesses meet goals like increasing sales, other goals like increasing customer satisfaction. No matter what your business goals may be, there's a lot of opportunities throughout the Dynamics 365 product stack that our technology can support any business in achieving through that digital transformation journey.
Great. There's nothing wrong. Nobody can argue with a value proposition around increasing efficiencies, improving your operations, and of course, increasing revenue. I would like to actually bring Chad and Hanumanth into the conversation to talk about their experience as partners with Microsoft on our customers' migration journey. Hey, Chad, can you please describe what the migration journey looks like from an Enavate perspective?
Yeah. So at Enavate here, as I said, I have the opportunity to lead partner services. So we work with a lot of other Dynamics partners in helping them assist their end clients. We also have our own portfolio of end clients that we work with. So when we talk about the migration journey, we usually begin with a three-step process on the migration. The first step is what we call the health check, or running an assessment of your current Dynamics platform. A lot of those clients are on an on-premise version of ERP or even CRM. And so with that health check, what we're able to do is we're able to take a look at everything that you're utilizing, because a lot of the licenses clients have included so many different modules that they may not be relevant to the discussion for that particular client. So with a health check, we can see the data, we can see the metadata, I should say, and we can see the information around the users and what you're truly using within your existing solution, and thus better map to what does the journey look like to Dynamics 365. With that visibility now, we begin to have more of the digital transformation discussion that you heard Rachel talk about, and say, here is what we see for your on-prem solution, here is the path to get to cloud. Now let's visit about your organization's appetite for such movement. Let's figure out the timelines. Let's figure out if it means directly to Dynamics 365, if there's a step to Azure, all of those things that make it real, not just the vision of I want to move to cloud, but what does your journey look like? What will it mean to your company and your organization? And then thirdly, that helps as the end client, make that final decision on any of those paths to the cloud. And we begin with a lot of the migration tools that have been built and Microsoft offers, where we can migrate that data. You can have your historical data for reference as much as you want through a lot of the Dynamics or the Power Platform capabilities. You, of course, get the data you need in order to be up and running very, very quickly, open transactions, maybe a little bit of history, and then you begin your transformation. So landing there is one big step of the process, and we make it really simple for the ecosystem to understand what you have, where you're going, and what steps it will take to get there.
I really love, Chad, how you just laid that out so clearly in a step-by-step process. I want to follow up with a question about what your experience at Enavate has been from a specific industry standpoint. Where are you seeing, some nuances or some differences, say of a migration journey in one industry or category versus another?
It's a great question. In terms of the clients that we've worked with the most, we've done a lot of distribution industry migrations. We've done some pro serve, and we've done a little bit in even the food and beverage area. And so each of them have a slightly unique way of going about that, or at least the things that we look for. A lot of that migration depends on the ISVs you're using. And that's where we, as an ecosystem, with our friends at Sonata and others, we've helped more of the ISVs be ready. So you can keep the ISVs that you're using. But a real good example recently has actually been in the sports leagues. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but sport leagues were huge Dynamics GP users. Many are still today. And if not Dynamics GP, Dynamics NAV was very prominent there. And we've now worked with 3 teams in the Football League, National Football League, that have needed to move from on-premise to the cloud. And getting that information and looking at their entire picture and then saying, okay, you've got retail shops, you've got sports venues that you're trying to manage. What is the core of what you need to do? And a lot of it comes down to the financial system. Let's make sure we can move the GP financials into Dynamics 365, and then will the other things that might be best of breed or maybe more Dynamics 365 solutions come along. And so a lot of what we see depends on the industry you're in, and it depends on what kind of appetite you have for that movement. Moving that, what we call the glapper, the financial piece, is pretty straightforward. And that's, for example, with the sports leagues, that's where we've begun those journeys as a phase 1. And then we can get into building out on the rest of the Dynamics platforms in phase 2 and 3.
Fantastic. Hanuma, I would like to drill down with you on the best practices and the lessons that you've learned at Sonata as you have been working with customers on their migrations. Talk to us a little bit about some of those best practices and lessons learned.
Sure. Great, Monique. So at Sonata, I mean, the process that Chad has laid out, it's very much similar, right? So we always, the whole idea is to start off with an assessment, a discovery. You can call it by any names, but essentially the whole idea is to understand what is that the customer is currently using, or more importantly, what they are not using.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Because,
and listening to the customer, right? And understanding the customer's needs, really having that conversation right up front, yes?
Correct. Absolutely. And then what it helps us is in doing that, helps us then actually laying out the path for the customer in terms of whether they really need to do a transformation, right? I mean, of course, everybody needs to do a transformation, but then how do you do that first? First, do you do transformate and then move, or move and transform? So there are 2 slight variations to it. So what we've seen is that in many cases, right, when it's a case wherein people are already, say they have been using the system for quite some time, right? Especially if you look at people who are on AX 2009, right? So they would have been implemented at least 10 years down the road, right? So now they are at that cusp, right, where they are now deciding that should I obviously I need to move because there's a need, I need to move and everything is there, but should I now transform because I'm using the system which is 10 years old, I'm having my business processes which are quite old, right? Should I use this as an opportunity to transform? So in such cases, what we do is, as part of the assessment and then the roadmap that we lay, is where we say that, yes, now let's transform. And then as part of that, when you're looking at it, let's look at whatever is there old, right? What should we take, what we should not take? That's the whole decision that comes in. Whereas if you're on a much later version, like say you're on an AX 2012, say an R3 sort of scenario, right? You are more or less using the system to a certain degree. Your processes are fairly, I would say, modern, right? And in such cases, then the choice which the customer has is, should we then just do a technical upgrade, as we call it, right? Move things as is, and then look at what's new in Dynamics 365, how we can do that, and then try to bring the transformation to the business. So that is the two things that we've seen. And depending on, as I said, transformation is a given. Everybody needs to move, and that is there, but it's just that there are different ways how you would like to achieve it.
So to follow on the idea that everybody needs to move, they know that they need to move, and transformation is kind of almost inevitable, Hanuman.
Sure.
What is still the objection? What is still the resistance that you're experiencing when you talk to customers from Sonata's point of view?
One of the biggest thing is, unfortunately for us, is non-technical. It's always the change management, right? What happens if I have to change from a particular way I'm doing the process to the new way of doing process, right? And that is what we typically face, and more that is the type of objection that comes in, right? Whereas it's not, that's why I'm saying it's more non-technical. But when it comes to but the other ways that when you look at it, right, there's always this about that there has been an investment that has been done, right? And it depends on when has been the investment been done. So if it is something which is, as I said, 10 years ago, they are much easier. I mean, the business case is much easy to put up, and then they can quickly change. But if it is when something that as an implementation has been done, say 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right, that's a case where typically you need to really be able to justify what is the business value that you're getting. And it's not just about, yes, I'm moving to the cloud. I mean, that's fine. So what? Right? From a business standpoint, right? The IT completely understands moving to the cloud, what are the benefits and things like that. But from a business person, they don't see much of a change, whether they are on-prem or on the cloud. So that's where we are actually having to do more of in terms of actually bring about business value. And the way you bring about business value is look at functionality that and then as Rachel was mentioning, right, look at efficiencies, look at improvement areas and things like that. And in that whole process, there is a whole ecosystem that you need to look at. Look at ISVs, look at customizations, what can be done, what can be taken. So that's the whole thing that you need to sort of put that whole, play out that whole solution together. And then that helps us in terms of actually getting that buy-in. But otherwise, that's the place where you typically have a roadblock and sometimes you have issues.
Right. I think it's interesting that you noted that it's not necessarily fear of the technology implementation. It's not any hesitancy about the solution per se. It's all of, kind of hearts and minds. And, Rachel, I would love to hear from you about, what you're experiencing in your conversations in kind of breaking through this hearts and minds challenge.
Absolutely. I think from a fast track perspective, we're constantly talking with customers about, those goals, those objectives, what is that business value that you're going to get? And I think translating that, from, the goal of increasing revenue or decreasing costs to actual technology solutions, that's where our partner ecosystem can help. And I think finding those automations where you're going to get the most value, but mapping everything back to those goals, those business objectives that you need is so critical in that long-term success. Organizations that I've worked with that I've seen be so successful have not only taken on new technology, but they've almost taken on a culture shift within their organization that it's not, we're one and done. We're not going to upgrade to the cloud or upgrade to this new Dynamics 365 version and magically everything's going to be better and we're done. Digital transformation is a journey. It's something that your organization has to uptake it as a culture. And the ones that do this really, really well and put in processes to continue to make those incremental changes, like Chad mentioned earlier, like change management is so hard. Incremental change is always going to be easier for any organization to take. So when we can find ways to gradually change and take the benefits of the new innovations that are coming out, those are the organizations that I see that are being the most successful. The ones that are trying to do the big bang and make it all perfect before we click go, I think struggle, and it takes a lot longer to get to the value that you're shooting for. And I think it's so important to think about, how can we phase this out? How can we make the impact and the risk to the business less, but make this a part of our culture as well?
Right. Yeah, no, culture is so important. And I think what you're saying is that, yes, you're going to have rainbows. You're going to have pots of gold at the end of those rainbows, but you're going to have to do the work. Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time, and it's going to take effort, and it's going to take energy. And you can't expect results to happen overnight. You got to be in it for the long haul.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about talent. And how these projects that you work on at Sonata and at Enavate are no small feat. And you need to be attracting and retaining top talent in your organizations and having that capacity to be able to deliver for your customers. What are some of the challenges that you are experiencing, with talent recruitment and retention in your organizations? Chad first.
Okay. There is no doubt that with the advanced, the pace of the change, the pace of the requirement for folks to move from on-prem to cloud, that the entire industry is facing a lack of the capacity. There's very talented individuals. There's just not enough of those folks available right now across the world. So, for example, here at Enavate, we have a very large team in Ukraine. We have a team in Poland. We have a team in the US and Canada. And just finding enough talent or enough capacity for that and the things that we want to do has been a challenge. There's no question. What are we doing then within Enavate and really across what others in the industry are trying to do is we're spending more time on educating and running what we call academies. We do that in twofold. The one is on the technical side. So getting university students directly into an academy, getting them excited about the possibility of business management. No one gets excited when we talk about ERP, but they get excited when we talk about business management because it's this entire end-to-end and solving it through whatever that solution looks like in the end, to Rachel's point. Not the big bang, but we get there.
Well, you're saying no one's excited about ERP?
People just don't seem to want to wake up each day and say, gosh, I wish I could change my ERP system today. But when you see the talent, when you see what you can get from it, you keep that long range vision in place, it makes a big, big difference. And so we get the folks that are in university coming out and we get them mentored with more senior people on the engineering side, for example, or on the technical side. But Hanuman said something that was really, really important in terms of the business transformation and getting business experts. And that is an area where it has been a bigger struggle lately to find enough of those talented individuals or the capacity to pull off and have that conversation. What we've done at Enavate is instead of looking into the technical side and bringing that into a business person, we've run these academies for business professionals, people that are already in finance, people that are already managing projects, people in distribution. And we've said, are you looking for a change in career? Come to an academy. We will teach you the technology, but you have the business acumen to go talk to these individuals, to talk to these clients, and really help them lay out not the first phase, the end game, and say, here's how we're going to get your realization of this digital transformation and really make this happen for your organization. So we've focused some of our academies now on business professionals making a career change, teaching them the technology underpinnings because they have such diverse value and talent in talking business to business with those clients.
Right, that's awesome. Hanuman, how about Sonata? How are you guys handling the talent and capacity challenges?
I guess there's not too much of a difference from what Chad has been saying. Only I would say that we are looking at it from two perspectives. Okay, one is obviously how do we get talent and how do we keep them up to speed, up to then new skills and things like that, right? And so for that, you get a university grad, you get a or you get a cross-train, as we call it, right? Which is a person who's been working in the business, get them, and then teach the product. So that's one. And then what we've also done is we have what is called a unified engineer program that we have come up with, which essentially is a completely self-serve sort of laid out program that we have, which we get all our consultants to go through, right? So this helped us in couple of ways. One is that it helps us get the new talent and then get them up to speed on things very fast. And then once that is done, then you have the whole mentoring program in terms of we push them through, pair them up with a mentor and then get them through the whole, I would say, tricks of the trade, so to say, yeah. Right? And so that's something that we do. And then the other aspect that we've also now been focusing on is trying to use tools and technology, right? Because one of the things that we've seen is that, when it comes to an implementation, right, or an upgrade or any migration that we are looking at, right, there is obviously there are nuances which are there because of industry and things like that. But at the base product level or the base solution level, right, there is a lot of things that can be replicated, right? And if you take that and sort of make that process as streamlined as possible, right? So what you have tools which help in terms of doing the migration, say for instance, right? So it basically makes that, one is that it makes it less riskier because now it's much more repeatable and things like that. And it also helps us because then you can get, because the process is laid out, then you can get anybody with a little bit of knowledge to be able to quickly pick it up and then run. Right. So that's how we are looking at. So we have sort of invested in tools, right? And one of the things that we've actually done specifically for this whole modernization of the migration program is that we have the tools which are on top of the standard tools that come also from Microsoft, specifically in terms of how do we look at migrating customization, migrating data, how do you migrate integrations, reports, and things like that is something that we've done. So essentially trying to make it much more smoother, I would say, importantly for the customer, and making it less riskier for us. So that's how we have tried to approach this whole thing.
That's fantastic. And in fact, Microsoft is even making investments in this space as well. Rachel, why don't we talk a little bit about the Microsoft Learn Career Connected program?
Absolutely. I think the Microsoft Learn Career Connected program is something that's pretty new. We've got 4 career paths that we've outlined for you. And the one that I think is so critical that I feel like is maybe lacking the most right now personally is that functional consultant. Those are those people that are going to, Chad, you were talking about that functional consultant earlier, that business person who has the business acumen and learning to translate that business value to the software technology. But we've got a career connected path out there for the technical resources as well, the data, analysts, and I believe there's another one for like reporting as well. So it's a pretty well-rounded program. We will continue to build that out. From a fast track perspective, we continue to build out our resources as well with our implementation guide, and coming very soon, the new business process guide. So there's a lot of resources coming soon that you can all look out for, and we'll make sure to give you some links at the end of this presentation to go find all of these wonderful resources available to you.
Right, that's fantastic. Okay, so my next question is about what customers really should look for in a migration partner. So, Chad, what are the criteria that people should have, kind of at the ready when they are choosing a migration partner for their, for their move to the cloud?
I think it comes down to 3 very important things. Look for a partner that has experience in migrating the data and getting it up and running very, very quickly. Look for someone that is very familiar with the tooling in order to make that a seamless, repeatable process, because that means they've done it several times. They've worked out a lot of the details that can be lost in the first one or two migrations that make it easier as the time goes along. And then thirdly, and I think we've stressed this a fair amount, look for a partner who has the business acumen, not just to pull off the technical piece, which we've talked about in the experience and tooling, but to really set up that digital transformation and paint the picture of where your organization is going to go over the next 2, 3, 4 years, because that drives some of the first foundational changes. But of course, it sets you up to take those steps forward as you go on your journey.
Great. Hanuman.
So what I would say is, just to add to what Shad said, a couple of things is again there is one is that this whole, I would say, setting out a digital roadmap, right, would become very, very ability for the partner to set it up, because it's very important that you can't do this change overnight, right? And you can't do a big bang at the end of the day, how much ever you would like to do it, but you can't. So it essentially means that you need to put the whole roadmap, lay it out, and then you need a partner who will be able to do that and take you along with it, right? And then the other thing, what is important, and it's important, is that you need a partner who is also looking at all the other areas, the ecosystem, if I were to call it that, because in today's world, when you're doing a migration, it's not just about you moving your DynamicsAX onto Dynamics 365, right? You need to look at your ISVs, you need to look at your integrations, you need to look at the other customizations you may have, and all that sort of thing, right? So there is an Azure play in it, there's a data play in it, and things like that. So you need I would say, as you call it, a full stack partner, right? So that's one key thing I would say it needs to be looked at. The other aspect is obviously talent, which we briefly touched upon, and the need for the talent. I mean, and there are multiple ways that you would look at it, in terms of, you look at architecture knowledge, which is there, because you need to put out the whole solution and things like that. You need to look at, say, something like technical knowledge because of the product and things like that. So there are multiple ways that you need to. So you need to have somebody who is well-rounded and has that, right? And then the third thing is, I would say, is change management. So you need to have a partner who's able to help you in the journey, because obviously an external person, I firmly believe that an external person can't come into your organization and help and do the change, right? So they can only support you in actually helping you to propagate the change and get that change be accepted. So you need somebody who can also take that. So I would say these are the 3 points that I would say is also need to be looked at from a partner point of view.
Right. And Rachel, for Microsoft, how are we collaborating with our partners to ensure that customers are getting great partners in their migration journey?
Absolutely. I mean, we have multiple programs to help ensure that our partner ecosystem is up to par with, the standards that we put out. So our partners have different certifications that they can get to indicate whether or not they have met certain criteria. And then we also have our Fast Track program. And so we've got a program called Fast Track Recognized Solution Architects, making sure that you have a really good, solid solution architect on any project that you embark on is so important, because you need that person who can kind of look at the project overall and make sure that those goals and those things that we're driving for are, being handled in the best way. And those solution architects are really those people. They're the very senior, experienced resources in a project who have that experience. They've been around, it's not their first time doing this. So making sure that you've got that, and that Fast Track Recognized Solution Architect is one great way to do that. We also have our MVP program. MVPs are people that are very plugged into the community and can help make sure that your organization is up to speed with the latest and the greatest information. So I think there's a lot of different ways. Any partner that is implementing has access to our Fast Track program. We have Fast Track resources available for everyone, whether you're self-service, partner-led, or full Microsoft-led Fast Track. So all of those things I think are super critical to layer on to what Chad and Hanumath mentioned.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have the full range to support our partners in the ecosystem to ensure that migrations are a top priority for the business. No doubt, for sure. So let's close with a little bit of a round robin. I'll start with you, Rachel. What are the 3 things that we can advise our customers to do today to move forward with migrating to the cloud?
Yeah, so top 3 things for me. Number 1, anyone can do this, no matter what level you are in an organization. Start to put pen to paper on your business goals. If you are just maybe a department manager or lead, that's okay. Think about your department, but also think about, when you had your last all-hand meeting with your CEO, what were the big visions and topics that your CEO was talking about? Put pen to paper and think about how you can achieve that in your department, in your organization. So that's number 1. Number 2 is starting to evangelize and learn about the product, right? So there's lots of free resources available out there to you. Our implementation guide is a great starting point. We have a chapter, it's chapter 1 in the book. And so if you haven't read chapter 1, I strongly urge you to read chapter 1. It's don't feel like you need to sit down and read all 800 pages, but chapter 1 is going to give a lot of really great specific guidance with a checklist. So that's my number 2. And then my number 3 is really about community, right? Leverage your community. You're not in this alone. You're here at this Success Day. There's a whole community of people here. Connect with them. There's lots of ways you can get connected, meet people here at the conference, visit our community site, be connected, because you're not the first person to do this. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Leverage your community.
That's awesome. Chad, 3 things.
That is pretty solid. So how do I add on to that? Well done, Rachel. You've heard I have a couple of conversations throughout this, and one of the big areas is be that change agent. Think about and imagine what your company is going to do, not tomorrow, but what it's going to look like in 2 and 3 years. What is it? What is the optimized way that you're going to do business? Not just because you're in cloud, but because of all of the services that now you can integrate, the way that you can now give control to folks to make power apps that really simplify their job role. You don't need to invest in a whole IT infrastructure to do that. The ways that you can bring in any sort of industry information and munch that into your data and your forecast, how you can use artificial intelligence, machine learning, the things that maybe are beyond reach today become right there and accessible tomorrow. So be that change agent. Think about, as Rachel said, it doesn't matter where in the organization you are, lay that vision, lay that, hey, let's go here. And part of that then is, as part of the process, study what does a digital transformation plan look like. You heard some great tools that are available today. Certainly get a dialogue going with colleagues, with people at the conference, et cetera. But not only have you painted the vision, but now you have an idea of how you might step through it. And then thirdly, there are so many programs, as you've heard about today. There are tools available to assess your current situation, your current environment, and then really understand what it means to your company. So painting a big, bold vision is one thing, but then understanding how does my company, with what I'm using today, take the first step becomes critical to the journey. So those would be my 3 things that I would encourage.
That's fantastic. And Hanumath, your 3 things to advise our customers on what they can do today.
I would say one thing is that there's a lot of change that has happened from a technology standpoint, right? There's a lot of new stuff that is currently being available on D365. So one is that you need to see and adopt what is available, right? And that is, again, it goes back to the change management and things like that. But you need to be open to that, because you should not get stuck to the way I've been entering an invoice for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years, and I want to do the same today, right? Because there is so much new that has come. Because nowadays when you talk about with Power Apps and Power Automate, you don't need to enter an invoice anymore. The system can automatically create an invoice based on a paper or an email and things like that. So there's a lot of change that is there. So you need to adopt what is coming new your way, right? Because it helps in the long run, because you're customizing less, and things like that, which will help you in terms of that. The second thing which I would say is again to see and also try to look at what your peers are doing and what your competition is doing. That's again important. So for you to internally benchmark against them, right, to be able to see that how can you do a one-up on them, right? And with Dynamics, right, there are a lot of other, I would say, functionality, tools, and things like that which are available, which can help you do that, right? And if you look at the whole implementation program or the implementation plan that comes up from Microsoft and things like that, there are a lot of tools which are available as part of that, which essentially, and as Rachel was saying, the whole business process maps, right? These are actually what is best in class, or the best practices that are essentially being used collective across multiple industries, multiple customers, and also adopt to that. So that is, I would say, the second one, which is important. And the third one, which is again there, is that it's at the end of the day, it's an ERP implementation, right? And which means that there needs to be ownership from the business, right? And that's key over there, because it is at the end of the day not an IT project, right? It has to be business. So you need to involve the business right from the start. And that's where the whole involvement of the business, right from an assessment stage or a discovery stage to the end of go live, as long as you're able to involve them, I definitely see that would be of great help for them in the long run.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for such a fantastic discussion about migrating to the cloud with Dynamics 365. So in closing, I want to encourage all of you to enjoy the rest of the conference, first of all. This has been an amazing opportunity for us to have this discussion with you. We want you to follow up on this migration discussion, either with Microsoft directly or with a migration partner. Request that free Microsoft Standard Migration Assessment, and then join the community. As Rachel said, it's so important to know that you are not alone on this journey. And we have the Dynamics Migration Community where you can continue the conversation and to connect with peers who are experiencing their migration journey, so that you can learn from their lessons and their stories. So with that, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference and have a fantastic day.